Motivational World. Subscribe.
So I've never said this in this exact order. I talked for 7 years to my dad, I'm gonna be a great advertiser. I get to the business, I run no advertising for 6 months. I redid the whole store.
So what'd you choose? Can you name one thing that completely changed it?
I used to sit behind a register in a slow, like I would sit, like my job was to stand behind the register in my dad's store my whole teenage years and summers, vacations. It was slow. Like we didn't have that many customers. Like you're in Tuesday liquor store in town at 2 p.m. It's not like there's 50 fucking people in the store.
Yeah.
So I was able to watch people, and that's what I did. I wasn't bored. There was no phones back then. I would read the Wine Spectator, and then as soon as the door opened, I would and I mean fucking watch.
That's a study itself.
Like in hindsight, it's who I am. It's why I still read every comment. Like I would watch how they walk. I remember when I was finally 22 and came from college and it was my turn to run the business, the first thing I did, I redid the whole store.
So what'd you choose? Can you name one thing that completely changed it?
You're gonna see my passion right now because I'm standing up.
Yeah.
The way you used to walk into the stores, you'd walk in and there'd be a big display of stuff, and then the natural progression, the register was here, so the natural progression was to go left. And then in the back of the store was the beer cooler. Basically, the left was where they would go. The beer cooler was in the back, took up a fourth of the store. My dad's store was called Shoppers Discount Liquors, but I wanted to be Wine Library. Beer was a huge driver. I made the decision to tear down the beer cooler and put it against the left wall, which was awkward in its shape. So our beer cooler got cut by fucking 70%, but I still had the same amount of doors. I just didn't have the inventory behind it. So I had less cold beer. But we weren't selling cold beer at any kind of rapid where I didn't have to, I kept the top 10 brands cases in the back. And the 11th, it's sold so slow, by the time you put 1 or 2 back there, it didn't go by the 6-pack anyway, which opened up the whole back. And then what I did was this left side the right side that you never would go towards, I basically stopped merchandising there because you weren't gonna see it anyway. And I made this something called the top 10. Instead of like stacks on top, I gave it a framework to merchandise it. It just said top 10. But because it was merchandised as 1, 2, 3, the number one wine sold like, it had no context. So I merchandised that, I racked out everything for much bigger selection. I took all the old school, like I moved liquor to the side wall, and then I started maneuvering patterns, and then at the register, I eliminated cigarettes in 1998. I eliminated mini bottles, and I made it all premium, half bottles of champagne and wine. So instead of people grabbing like 9-cent peanuts at the register, they were grabbing like $7 half bottles of wine. So I escalated average receipt size by, and then that skill set got me to day one on winelibrary.com to care about shopper cart dynamics. Day one. Like when I tell you that things that Amazon did 5 years later, this is incredible for me to say. This is rewarding as an intellect and devastating as not being a smart enough businessman to realize the one click and the open cart. Guys, I was doing open cart optimization by hand in 1997. In 1997, Brian Delatorre worked in my company and went in the back end, looked at carts that didn't complete and would call people to close them. If I even had a half a brain of how the world actually worked, I would have developed a software to like help people do that and built a I'd own the Jets and the fucking Spurs and I'd be set. That's where it took me years later to develop macro business, but intuitive consumer, I feel like I'm right there with anybody.
Motivational World. Subscribe.